Hi, I'm Alix, and I'm here at the Things Network, the Things Industries Conference, the Things Conference here in Amsterdam. And I'm here today with Frank Neudecker from Thermokon. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's such a nice thing to be back in person and you get to see people from all the sides instead of just their faces. And
Yep, definitely.
belly to belly, as they used to say.
Yes.
Now, is this your first, second, third?
It's for us the first time that we are at the Things Conference. LoRaWAN actually for us is a new technology. Thermokon comes out of the traditional building automation sensor business. So we're doing sensors for more than 30 years, but with the traditional technologies, everything from, let's say, passive 0 to 10 volt, 4 to 20 milliamp, BACnet, Modbus, LON, all the different protocols. And we decided around about 2 years ago to add LoRaWAN to our portfolio. So this is the first time that we actually show more or less the whole portfolio, what we have started now, all the different products that we now can offer with LoRaWAN as well as an alternative to traditional technologies.
But then that makes a lot of sense, right? Because we all talk about these shiny new installations and shiny new developments, but there's a lot of existing infrastructure that has to be upgraded.
Definitely. Most of the buildings, around about 80% of the buildings which will exist in 2030 do exist today already. So we mainly talk about retrofit. If we look on carbon footprint and reducing energy consumption, we have to take care of the buildings of today.
Well, now, what are some of the obstacles in retrofit? Is it just simply a wiring issue? Is it a compatibility issue? You're taking out the old system, right?
In many cases, or we actually extend the old systems, that the components of the old system may still persist in the building, but we're adding new stuff. And then, of course, if you don't need an electrician to run a lot of wires, especially through an existing building, which might even be an historical monument or whatever, that saves a lot of time and a lot of work.
Something tells me you've worked with the Germans before if you're talking about it like that.
Yeah. We have been doing wireless retrofit solutions for, I would say, it's around about 15 to 20 years now, using a different technology, which is much more limited in range than LoRaWAN is. So from that point, we do have an experience in retrofitting building with wireless solutions. And we're looking forward how we can combine that with the longer range of the LoRaWAN products.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, Frank, right? And the reason I mentioned Germany, of course, is there are other countries that have very strong historical preservation laws, but Germany has some very strong, heritage laws, building heritage laws.
Yes.
And if it's behind the walls, you have to be a licensed electrician to even touch it.
Yeah. And in many cases, the walls, if that's wall paintings, all historical, think about churches and stuff like this.
Can't even dig in the walls.
You don't want to have a run of wire across the wall. That's the no-no. And then wireless sensors actually are the best option. Yeah.
Well,
but even not just monuments. That niche would be way too small. We have equipped, for instance, the European Central Bank in Frankfurt, which is fairly new, I would say, something like 10 years or whatever. There we have around about 12,000 wireless sensors built in the European Central Bank, communicating by a short-range wireless protocol, because at that time when the building was done, we haven't had the LoRaWAN solution yet.
Now, when you think about that, are there specific bottlenecks? Are there specific issues that have to be addressed every time? Or with old buildings, it's a different issue each time?
Well, radio range, in terms of wireless, radio range is always a topic. And one of the big obstacles has been that most of the customers or the technicians who start working with a new technology like LoRaWAN, it's a new technology to them. And all their background is then maybe the old traditional hardwired kind of technology. And their expectation is that wireless does work exactly like hardwired. And that's not the case. We all know that with our mobile phone, you might have certain spots in a building or in a city where you have no reception, and then how to deal with that situation. And the same thing can happen with a wireless sensor in a building as well. It might not have always good receiving conditions. So from that point, the guy who does the system integration needs to know how to deal with the situation when for a few minutes or whatever, I lost the connection to my sensor, and how to deal with that situation in a building automation environment.
That's an excellent point to make. Now, obviously, old buildings, when you talk about building automation, but that goes for any building, right? Could be a hospital, could be anything. Are there any application verticals, specific groups that are begging for this upgrade, this modernization?
Well, it's actually two factors which are driving that, I would think. One is the historical monuments where you cannot touch it, where it's difficult, and the second one I would say is the time. Building automation is usually deployed in a building at the very end of the construction process. And in many cases, at least that's true for Germany, at the end of the building construction, it's already delayed. So they missed the schedule anyways. So the faster they can actually deploy the building automation stuff, the more time they can make up from what they have lost in the up front, I would think. And that is a big benefit of the wireless technology, where you don't need to have the need to run wires. Plus you save the cost, the copper, the isolation, and the fire load, which might be an issue as well in some of the applications.
What about a building that has old legacy wiring everywhere? It might be easier to put in a wireless system than change out or repurpose those wires.
The main problem you have in that kind of situation is you don't know exactly how the old wiring looks like, because that's in a legacy building that might have been extended a couple of times and it's no longer the old whatever star shape or bus structure anymore. And then depending on what kind of technology you had there before, if you put in a new one and try to reuse the cable work, you might end up getting an unreliable communication.
So better to just leapfrog to wireless.
In many cases, that's the alternative. Either take out the wiring and do everything anew, or directly go for wireless.
Very cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you're taking with us, Frank. Because when you think about it, we're all trying to make the new solutions work in old venues, new venues everywhere.
Yes, true.
So thank you, Frank. I really appreciate you coming by.
Yep.
And don't forget, our next interviewee is going to be Karthik Ranjan from Semtech, and we're going to be talking about the LoRaWAN ecosystem.